Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm looking at this room. I've been thinking about real estate and technology for 25 years, so it's nice to have some friends interested now. A little context, I started out in the IT world. I sold mini computers, so now you know how old I am. Was right there when they went mini computers, distributed PCs, networking, so I had a relatively good background in big enterprise platforms. But I always wanted to be in real estate, so about 25 years ago, I jumped out. And when I got into the real estate industry, I said, holy cow, deals on napkins and no spreadsheets, and there was no technical sophistication. I said, I got a lot of work to do. So started a little consulting company. That turned into the conference that is celebrating. We just celebrated last week, so if I start to zone off a little bit, I'm still coming out of 5 days, 20-hour days. We had 2,000 people from around the world, about 25 countries represented, senior level real estate executives, and so we had CBRE, JLL on one hand, and then we had Intel, Cisco, and all the tech players, Google on the other hand. So it was a really beautiful blending of both the real estate and the technology side. We did 5 days, and we guesstimate that we had about 50 billion square feet of senior level executives looking for innovation, right? So this topic is very fresh on my mind. It was probably one of our biggest conferences in modern history. And when somebody flies, 20 hours from Singapore or 20 hours from Sydney to come to our event, we take it very serious. And I think we had probably close to 200 speakers and a sold-out exhibit floor. So it was quite an event. What I want to try to do in 30 minutes or less is give you some context because I think it's important. I'm going to take you a little history. I'm going to bring it to today on the real estate tech front, and then I'm going to go to tomorrow where we think things are going. And then if we have a couple minutes, maybe some questions. If not, I see my timer. I always forget to look, but I will pay attention. So, all right. So, commercial and corporate real estate innovation. We put this together because there were a lot of folks in the last few years that thought this was the first time this was happening to the industry, and that's not the case. So we put this infogram together to kind of get some context when our industry has really been thinking about real estate technology. Phase one, that was the property management, Yardi MRI, on the building automation, Johnson, Honeywell, Siemens. The next time our industry got serious about real estate tech was .com, and we saw a big amount of money come in. That was 95 to 2002. We sold out our conference. We were moving our general session out to a tent in the parking lot because we ran out of space. The shrimp were big, and the Cuban cigars showed up. I mean, it was just crazy. Phase three was not as fun, and I remember the day the music stopped, almost the day when I just looked at my team, I said, it's over, and that was the drop into the .com, post-.com era. And then the next time we started hearing more rumbling was 2009. And interesting how that followed 2008, which was our big economic collapse. A lot of capital came out. There was 0% interest rates. Capital was chasing returns. And all of a sudden, we found people really starting to invest in CRE tech or prop tech again. And that phase, we think, went to about 2016. We guesstimate right now about $12 billion has been invested in that time period. And I'm going to show you a graph in a second on the companies. Phase 5, we introduced at our conference 2 years ago. Silicon Valley, all of you started talking about AI, machine learning, blockchain, autonomous. We're going, what the heck was this? I had a reporter from Wired Magazine at our general session. He goes, I don't care if you're not done with phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're bringing phase 5, and you better figure out how you're going to integrate 30, 40 years of technology to make these buildings hum the way we know they can. So that's a little bit of history. That's 20% of the companies that are now in the CRE tech space. That's 500 logos. We guesstimate there's 3,000 companies. And on top of that, we had about $1.5 billion in capital at our conference last week looking for more new companies. So we're saying we're hovering at around 3,000 companies, old, current, as well as new. And we're just trying to sort out how this all works together. So if you got a brand new idea when the sensor in the ceiling, how does that deal with the 30-year-old Johnson Controls equipment in the back room? And that's what we've been trying to figure out for the last 15, 20 years. All right, so this is how we break it down. There's a problem, you got a business issue, somebody comes up with a great idea, technology or the tools you put in place, and then you automate something. It always results in automation. Uber's a perfect idea, okay? I'm tired of taking cabs that are dirty. They don't take credit cards. They never show up. They don't know where they're going. I want to get from A to B better. Uber, right? So what do? They said, let's innovate this whole process. How can we make it easier? They got together their cell phones, their clouds, their apps. They came up, they automated the process, and now, boy, you click a button of something, a car shows up, and you drive away, the bill shows up, no papers exchanged. It's brilliant. In our world, that affects real estate 3 different ways. It creates next generation space. For those of you who are familiar, the WeWorks, the shared space, the co-location, was you mentioned, a restaurant turning into a co-working space, when it's not being used. So we call that next gen space. Office, retail, the malls are changing, e-commerce is affecting them. Smart connected buildings, I'll show you a picture in a second where, the wire goes up the middle, everything gets connected to the network, and we start to operate those buildings in new ways. And then last but not least, information management processing. Give me so much good data that I can predict the next crash, or I know when to sell that apartment building in Atlanta and buy an office building in San Francisco, okay? The data's there, we just don't know how to use it. All right, so this is a little history. We go, what we're going through is as big as this. These are paradigm shifts. That's the agrarian age, okay? And then we go to the industrial age. And then we go to what we've all been living through for the last 50 to 75 years, okay? In the real estate world, in the agrarian age, we had barns. In the industrial age, we built factories, as you mentioned. Real estate changes, right, constantly. So this is what we're all used to, in the last 50 years. There's the industrial building, there's Prologis, there's Simon up on top, and there's Boston Properties on the bottom right, the office owners, okay? We build buildings, we go to them. Now, these guys, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all these other guys said, yeah, you still need to go places, but we believe you jump on this thing called the internet, and you can do things with your cell phones and your tablets, and you don't need to necessarily go all the time. So is it go someplace and do something, or grab a device and do something? And so that's the tension we're feeling right now. And so I was on a trip in Europe in the early 90s, or late 80s actually, and I was driving on this train, I got this thing like, oh my God, I'm leaving the real estate industry, or tech industry, I'm going into real estate. What does this mean? So I looked at all these industries, and I looked at the processes of what it meant to buy something or go to an office and use a copier, and I wrote an article called The Information Age and the Potential Impacts on Commercial Real Estate. And I looked at all these different areas. But in that article, it's about 10 pages, it's up on our website, I think some of you would get a kick out of it. I said, it's becoming apparent that a laptop and a modem are going to redefine how we use space. That was 26 years ago, okay? That's how stubborn this industry is. Okay, I mean, the logic was very clear to me that I didn't need to necessarily go to a mall and buy things. I could go up and Amazon was, and I talk about Amazon and Netflix in this article. I don't name them because they weren't companies yet, but it would give you some good historical context on how big these changes can be. So then the internet comes along. And we've got these things. This is real estate. Egghead Software, Virgin Records. These are all things we used to have to go to do. We had to go to a physical place. Egghead turns into App Store. Virgin turns into Spotify. And we go Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, Blockbuster turns into Netflix, YouTube. So all of a sudden, we didn't need to go any place to do something. We can now rely on the cloud and mobile applications to do it. So now we talk about office. That's what it used to look like. Cube farms, fancy desks for the people who were at the top, very nice looking conference room, and a guy sitting behind a desk full of papers. Well, that turns into that. If you've gone to Silicon Valley, all these new spaces, it looks much more high tech, much more agile. Boardroom got digital. Open space, shared space, the new way, and that guy turned into that guy, right? Even the old guys figured out how to grab a laptop. What we didn't, none of us really were ready for was this, and that was all you guys, the young generation. You put those computers in your pockets and you went everywhere, you're connected, you want faster broadband. That changes the fundamental reason why we need real estate, because you're doing everything at a coffee shop, in the car, in your Uber, and all of a sudden the real estate guys are saying, wait a minute, you're not coming to my space? Oh, and all this, you know what it costs to run this space, to change that light bulb, keep the air conditioning running, put all your sensors on it. It is a big job to run these buildings. So we were told in 2003 that we needed to go to Asia, okay, to look at innovation in real estate. We're saying, no, made here. So in 2003, we went across the country, U.S., trying to find innovative real estate projects, found almost none. So in 2004, we decided to go on the tour. So I'm going to take you on the tour. We did start, like I said, in New York, Chicago, Dallas. This was our 2003 tour, and we looked at every building and every kind of example of real estate technology. And by the time we got to LA, it was a little disappointing. And so the next year, '04, I grabbed 2 guys from Cisco and about 5 other people, and we went on our Asia trip. 2 weeks, 32 buildings, cities, small smart cities, almost killed us, especially the people in Korea. Boy, you guys know how to work hard, and then you go out all night, and then we had to get up in the morning and do it again. So for like 2 weeks, we just looked at buildings, got in airplanes, moved around, and what we saw there changed my life to the point that my 2 daughters are leaving for Shanghai Saturday morning. Okay, they're both studying Mandarin. They're going over, spend 2 weeks over there, and they're going to be meeting at a very young age, I wish I had this, with the head of IoT for Intel and CBRE and JLL. Just to get a sense of what is going on in Asia, because it's moving at a pace that I've never seen and continues to move at that pace. So our tour in '04 was Tokyo, Seoul, Songdo, Digital Media City, and these were people, like in Digital Media City, for example, they were experimenting with, I want a bus stop to be engaging. So you're sitting there, and all of a sudden a woman shows up and says, your bus will be here in 15 seconds, and then she disappeared and the bus showed up. They were playing with small ideas, big ideas, to the point where cities were, and if you know Songdo, or Incheon, I should say, which is right outside of Seoul, that was developed by a U.S. developer, and that was supposed to be the smartest city on the planet. And they were going to take that and they were going to just copy and paste it across Asia. So we left Korea, went to China, Hong Kong, stood on top of IFC2, brilliant building, one of the most automated in the world at that time. Shanghai, actually stood on top of Shanghai Tower when it was being constructed. The only building that was there when we went was Jinmao Tower. And some of the automation in Jinmao Tower in '04 is better than the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas that was built 4 years ago. So you got to start asking yourself, why are some people innovative and why are other people not? Beijing, not as innovative, I thought, as some of the other Chinese cities. Singapore, crazy. Now the good news is people are now coming from Singapore. We had a whole bunch of people from Singapore at our event last week, which I thought that was kind of neat to see that it's now a global thing and there's no pockets, but everybody who's really serious about this will travel the world looking for innovative ideas. Bangalore, India, doing some incredible thing. Lavasa, another smart city attempt. London, I felt Europe not as much. Europe is kind of, I believe, on the last iteration of the older technology, but the IT that's present in this room, Silicon Valley, the building Internet of Things, I do think that they're not as aggressive as they had been in past years. Kuala Lumpur, small little place, but doing some incredible things. Sydney, if you want to take a day trip, get on a plane, go to Sydney. Between Toronto and Sydney, Toronto's a little closer, right? Those 2 cities, as well as Seoul, and then maybe some places, in a couple places in Europe, those are the innovation capitals of the world when it comes to real estate technology. These people are living, and I'm going to show you a couple pictures in the world. They're living it. They're not just talking about it. They're really doing some incredibly innovative things. Okay, from Sydney, Toronto, I just mentioned. Google's doing a project on the Toronto waterfront, total smart city, little smart city inside of a city. Dubai, of course, we were told to follow the money, so in '05, '06, and '07, we went to Dubai, stood on top of Burj Khalifa, and actually when it crashed in '08, a lot of the great technology, the smart building, smart city technology that we saw, it got pulled back into the United States, and some of those ideas that were represented in Dubai in '07, where we saw 4,000 buildings connected to a wide area network, bringing the data back to a central repository. Those ideas made their way back to the U.S. and other parts of the world once we saw the crash in '07 and '08. Festival City, to this day, in my opinion, the smartest little city in the world. Everything was censored through a very sophisticated information management system, all the way to the point where the CEO could see the buildings, the city moving and breathing from an occupancy standpoint, from an energy standpoint, from a utilization standpoint. A brilliant, brilliant example of how technology could change the way buildings are used. Abu Dhabi, they kind of waited for Dubai to take the big steps and then implemented a few years later. Masdar was supposed to be a smart city. Came out, with a bang. George Jetson cars, no fossil fuel, car or automobiles. And it came up, but we've actually seen a decrease in activity or focus on some of the ideas that were proposed in Masdar. Yas Island, a brilliant architectural design as well as some interesting technology. Saudi Arabia, they're doing some stuff in Saudi. We got some partners in LA that are building some experience rooms, if you will, or that it feels like you're on a spaceship. And they're willing to take some examples. Cost, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, they sent all their people over here scavenging the world for technology to bring it back to cost and make it a truly differentiating experience. Portugal Planet IT, Microsoft was behind this, some Cisco executives. This one actually did not work. So for any of you who are especially in the big discussion of smart cities, I would study that. It goes all the way back to Disney and Epcot. And there was some, Ken Sakamura in Japan, Tokyo, took the idea to the next level. Smart cities are very elusive. There's too many moving parts or many moving parts. And to get all the technology to work together and all the stakeholders together is a little bigger challenge than a smart building. All right, China, I don't have time, but if you get a chance, go up to YouTube and type in 40 stories, 15 days. You see innovation. There's a company over there called Broad Construction that literally is building buildings in 40 days. And I think they're looking to build the world's tallest building in less than a year. Okay, so I think in the 6-month time frame. Brilliant video, and I think you'll get a sense of how innovation, that's on the construction side, but crazy innovative. All right, so I'm going to show you some of the things we saw on these trips. This was not in Asia. This was my daughter who's going to Shanghai on Saturday, playing with an iPad in 03. She was doing her tutoring with an Indian tutor. They'd come home from school, put on the headsets, dialed India. They had a little whiteboard there, and she would write the answer. The tutor would correct her. Shavru, who was her tutor, they created friendships. So that's just an example of how this stuff can become just naturally integrated into your life. And then we were always teaching our kids, putting hanging screens on. I'm that guy, right, the early adopter guy. In fact, I'm getting one of these, I think, put in my house, okay? That was a gas plasma that cost $5,000. I'm probably going to be that guy that puts this in my living room because this is the future, what you're looking at right there. That's UCSD working on low voltage. Any low voltage ideas? That's the future. Okay, see this building right here? This should be run on a 9-volt battery. These are all a low voltage. Most of the equipment in the ceiling is low voltage. It should be Cat 5 cables. Get rid of these 110. You could run a building like this on a 9-volt battery if we got rid of all the old analog AC equipment and moved to low voltage. We had virtual concierge on the top left. That means your receptionist, your concierge is someplace else. They actually implemented that in Toronto. And then, of course, solar, which that's a whole other discussion on the energy side, but going to have a big, big future. All right, that guy right there changed my life. That was Tokyo, 2004. He took a table lamp. You talk about Internet of Things. He took that table lamp, took an RJ45, plugged it into it. Power over Ethernet, big idea. LED lighting, second big idea. Bidirectional communications. That light showed up on the network like a printer. And I'm the IT guy going, that's a printer. He goes, no, it's a light. And it said, download driver. He downloaded the driver. You are now communicating. I saw the Internet of Things in 2004 at Matsushita corporate headquarters in Tokyo. And we stood there for 30 minutes and argued. We don't have enough IP addresses. And then we started talking about IPv6, and the guys from Cisco didn't know anything about it. The guys from Panasonic did, and I'm going, Cisco, shouldn't you know about IPv6? But brilliant. And that picture right there, that experience, led us in our community to really push not old-fashioned building automation, but the next generation of Internet of Things for buildings, which was all going to be IP-based. And it is absolutely coming true. That gal right there took our order. Not a big deal today, but even in America, you talk about innovation. Every restaurant should have people running around with tablets and not running back to the kitchen and putting paper in a metal wheel. And then parking automation, Tokyo, just through the roof. And one other picture I don't have, we have some developers here from Tokyo. Mori, one of the bigger developers, he created something back in 2004, 14 years ago, called MoriNet, which was a wide area network to connect all of his high-story office towers. Korea, again, one of the most innovative. They were putting, this is 2004, little front door people. So when you knock on the door, nobody's home. The little cartoon character says, "We're not here." How about this? FedEx guy, Amazon guy shows up, knocks on the door. Phone rings. Okay, I can't get in, but I'll let you in. Click a button. Amazon's actually doing this now, right? But the idea is that your front door, the physical side of the real estate, is connected to the mobility side of your life, right? So that was, and think about 14 years ago that the Koreans were thinking that we want to automate our houses to the point of creating what they called a digital lifestyle. That one this one right here is brilliant, and why every building owner in this country isn't doing it. That's not even high tech. That is a picture of a grocery shelf, okay, at scale. So the milk bottles are the same size. And while they're waiting for subways, they take their phone, they go over and they do their shopping and the bags at their door when they get home. Think about all the empty space we have in office lobbies, in retail, why that idea hasn't caught on here at a scale that, and this should be a question for everybody with good ideas. That's a brilliant idea. You could probably implement that for not a lot of money. Cell phone technology, a little scanner, and it's not even an LED wall, it's just backlit plastic. It took off in Korea, but why hasn't it taken off in the US? Question. Smart bathrooms, going to be the rage. Wearables, office owners are going to have to deal with, people walking in all wired up with all sorts of different things. In 2004, I bought a Coke with a cell phone. How many of you have ever used a vending machine with your cell phone? Raise your hand. See, look, it's not enough hands going up. You talk about innovation. This is brilliant. That was in Singapore. I walked up to the machine, I clicked the button, the soda fell, and then, you know what the discussion to the restaurant was? Holy cow, is the phone company going to become a credit card company? Is Visa in trouble? Is MasterCard in trouble? I mean, because that soda shows up on the bill of the phone, not the credit card. And at the time, Capitol Towers was the most automated building in Asia. All right, now on that trip, we also saw some transportation. That right there is the control room of IFC2 in Hong Kong, which I thought at the time was the most automated building in Hong Kong. CBRE's office on the bottom, but we saw it at Accenture. So you talk about innovation timeframes. CB announced this. It's now gone throughout their whole portfolio probably about 3-4 years ago. But we saw the shared office concept in Kuala Lumpur, of all places, in 2004. So that took, and if you look at the whole shared space, studying it, I believe the key to all this is studying the time adoption algorithm. Great idea, but when do a few people, it's like Jeffrey Moore's adoption curve, understanding the literal time of that would be critical to any new ideas you want to introduce. And then on bottom left, you've got CBRE now using Google Earth, an enhanced version of Google Earth, to give people tours of the buildings before they go out and get in their cars and look at them. This is one of the things that King Abdullah grabbed from UCSD. It's the walls, basically this idea, but this is probably going back 5-6 years. This right here is bigger than anything anybody can imagine. Every building, every room is going to have 3 walls of brick and mortar and 1 digital. Okay, and what that means is when I want that 4th wall to look like a brick, I can turn it into a red brick. When I want it to be anything else in the world, if I want it to take me around the world, I click a button, and all of a sudden this wall takes that real estate and goes from 10,000 feet to 50,000 feet because you can reach out to other places with the flip of a button. Those are some examples of virtual reality, augmented reality, teleportation, going to be huge. So this was, I referenced the network appliances connecting buildings and processes to the net. I wrote that in 2002, so that's 16 years ago. But this is what it looks like. Okay, this is the technical side of it. This is an infogram we came up with a while, but all those disparate systems on the bottom, right? Then you got to get it onto the network. You need a gateway to go from analog to digital, so to speak. You got to normalize the data. That network is hardwired. It's got some fiber, got some copper, it's got some wireless. And then you got to normalize, and then you got to secure it. Any of you doing apps for smart buildings, cyber has got to be at the top of your priority. We had a room full of 250 people representing billions of square feet saying, I'm not putting any smart anything on my building unless I know there's a cyber strategy because the risk is too high. Okay, so you got to secure it, and then from there you can start, once it's on the network in an IP environment, you can start segmenting data to different people. You can take a look at the cameras, you can take a look at the HVAC equipment, and then at the end of the day, we get all the data, we figure out how our buildings aren't being run very well, but the holy grail is machine to machine, where things will start happening in the buildings that will automatically tell the building someplace else to do it a little differently. Example is fire alarm picks up a fire, unlocks all the doors, starts taking your digital signage and saying, go out that door. This is what that looks like in a smart city environment. You go from a smart building to a smart portfolio to a smart campus to a micro grid, if you will, and then from there you go to a smart city. All right, I'm not even going to go here. This is what it takes to run a corporate real estate campus and all the different information systems that have to tie together. That's probably an 8-hour session just by itself. Now we're going to the future. This is what we started hearing from all of you in 06, 05. You've been sitting in the back rooms forever doing it. Autonomous vehicles. We now have real estate guys saying, okay, I'm building my parking garage, but I'm not building the slanted access anymore. I'm going to build the spirals because I'm going to someday take those floors and turn them into space. Once autonomous cars are showing up and people aren't using my parking lots as much, I'm going to be prepared to reuse that space 10 years from now, something other than a parking lot. Autonomous, or I should say augmented virtual reality. This has so many implications for the built environment. Maintenance guys fixing equipment they don't know anything about, having somebody come and help them, be a second set of eyes. Virtual tours. I mean, how would you like to walk through build this space when you're a new company saying, imagine this. Imagine your desk there and that office there. You put these goggles on and you overlay a traditional environment. You overlay a modern environment. You talk about getting people to make decisions faster. This, I think, is going to be one of the big things in our industry, and frankly, hasn't caught on at the pace I think it should have. Wearables, we're going to wear things everywhere, getting all sorts of sensor data on our bodies. What is a corporation's responsibility once you go into work to grab that data and help you with a wellness program? We saw that with a company up here in the Bay Area. When you go through an airport, you're going to start beeping all over the place because you got metal all over you. So the whole wearables movement is going to have implications in the built environment. This one, again, this is another one of those technologies. Why can't we have a three-dimensional, especially for guys, the dressing room experience where I can sit down, have a beer, a glass of wine, see myself 3D on a screen, all the good parts, all the bad parts. I mean, just hang that sweater on me and I'll deal with it, right? Let me see it in red, let me see it in green, click a button, have it delivered, okay? To a 3D printer in the back room, by the way. So Amazon, this is way, way out there, but you talk about paradigm shifts. Why would I make something, put it in a warehouse, and have to ship it around? When I showed my daughters this, they said, I don't want to go to a store to see that. I want that in my bedroom. And by the way, I want a 3D printer attached to it so I can print my jewelry and I don't have to go to Claire's. Okay, so when you start connecting some of this different technology, you talk about the retail guys needing to really wonder what does a mall look like in a few years. The combination of this kind of stuff, getting better and better, higher resolution, connected to products like 3D printers, it changes the whole retail supply chain, which changes everything. All right, of course, watches, they're going to start to getting more like jewelry. They're going to start, people are going to start augmenting their bodies with technology. That's already starting to happen. It's starting to get a little weird for me, but we'll see where that goes. Robotics, we had robots conversations at Realcomm and IBCon last week. They deliver towels to rooms and hotels. They deliver coffee to meetings and offices. In my guesstimate, in the next 5 years, you will see 20% of all real estate owner-operators using robots in their operations, from security all the way through maintenance and operations. Drones, we're seeing a lot of activity for site inspections, roof inspections, marketing. This was a good idea. In the parking lot late at night, young lady walking to her car, somebody crazy coming up, hit that red button, takes security 7 minutes to get there. Click the button, the drone can fly from a perch, hover over her with a camera on until security gets there. So we're seeing a lot of interesting new innovative ideas in the drone environment. Smart toilet, everybody laughs. Ken Sakamura, Tokyo, had this in place with Toto. You pee in the urinal and it tells you to go home because you have a cold. Okay? They have sensors now, blood tests. You can put a little device on your cell phone, go out into the middle of nowhere and give blood tests like you would get at the best hospital here in Silicon Valley. You can do it in the field remotely. Looking at the body, how it operates, how you can get data out of it, and then putting it into a building environment. I think we're going to see the innovative people taking those chances. All right, 3D printing I talked about. Dubai, they actually printed a building. Unfortunately, they can print guns, which is not a good idea. But Claire's Jewelry should probably be thinking about what does 3D printing mean to the jewelry business, as well as every other thing that is not too big that can be printed. And they're slow right now. They're not cost effective, but they're getting better and better every day. Okay, so this is where it gets a little crazy. That lady is special projects for Google. That pill right there, you swallow it. And it remembers your passwords. And apparently, the acid in your stomach keeps the battery going. The passwords are passed through your body, so when you go to the ATM, all you got to do is put your finger or any part of your body on it. The passwords magically pass through your body into the device. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that one. And the guy who was interviewing, the interview is on Google. It's a fun interview to watch. And he said, did they give you eating these things at Google? He says, she goes, it's a superpower. I'm going to do it, right? So that's an idea where some of this stuff is going. The contact lens for diabetics, that's been around for a while. And then this is the other side of it. I think somebody mentioned a little bit earlier. It's IT and biotech. So that guy is J. Craig Venter. Okay, he's the guy who mapped the human genome. And I was at his smart building in La Jolla. I was there looking at it because it was a smart building. I said, "What do you guys do here?" And he says, "Well, we mapped the human genome, and now we're doing some editing and some copying and pasting, getting rid of some bad genes and replacing." I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, we'll get rid of all the majors, the cancer, the diabetes." And I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Life expectancy to 125. He says, "Once we hit 125, 150 is easy." Okay, so the final slide, my final message is, between IT and biotech, our kids are going to live a different world. You are the future. You've got ideas in your head that are literally at a paradigm shift level going to change the way we live, work, play. And that involves a lot of the built environment, a lot of built infrastructure, and so it's going to require a lot of creativity. But my final word is just take a little time and study the real estate industry, its capacity for innovation, its ability to absorb innovation, and just make sure your spreadsheets on your projections take into account that this industry is pretty stubborn, right? You don't change stuff in the ceilings every 15, 20, 30 years sometime. And if you understand the speed that they're capable of adopting, then I think everybody wins, and I think the story ends much better. So hopefully that was good on timing. Thank you very much.